So before we jump into the build or the gear or anything like that, we need to understand why I'm calling this the best assassin build in Season 3. Now, as we know, Flurry got a pretty nice buff this patch where if you are running the perk for it, you will get a 1 second window of invulnerability. And reasonably so, people were pretty excited about that. But I kind of took it a whole step further. This build literally has iframes up 90 to 95% of the time while you're attacking, excuse me. And it's pretty insane. So as we know, evade, the staple of rapier, if you are actively attacking somebody, you can have this ability up literally every 1 to 2 seconds. So this is a pretty consistent form of invulnerability that the weapon has always had, but you're now able to chain that with Flurry, which has invulnerability now as well. And the really cool thing about Flurry as well, which you'll kind of see in the video, but the iframe actually starts from when you put your elbow back to start the thrust. So pretty much as soon as you gain grit is when you have the invulnerability. It's not when you start to attack. So you can actually use that to time against abilities and stuff like that really, really well. But it isn't just these two things. We are also running Greatsword, and one of its entire stances gives us a... It doesn't say it's an iframe, but I'm going to call it an iframe because that's essentially what it's doing. The frontal block that you get for gaining guard points while you're in Defiant stance essentially acts as a frontal iframe. And then on top of that, we are also running Rupture as well, which gives us Unstoppable. Now, or Uninterruptible, excuse me. Now, when you combine all of those things together, it's what makes the build so insane. It isn't Serenity, which is absolutely ridiculous. It isn't Shrieking Heals. It's the combination of iframes and how you use them in combat. And we'll kind of see once we jump into the PvP footage here, but yeah, this is easily one of the strongest builds I've ever made in the game. Now, taking a look at the build as a whole, we are running some pretty nice stats for the build. The build is actually pretty simple. 350 dex and 100 strength with 150 con. And the reason why I went for this attribute setup is because with Serenity and the Rapier as well as some other perks, Empower is something that we have up almost 100% of the time. And we'll kind of break down all of my different sources of gaining Empowered, but we pretty much always have that 15% crit chance. And then we're also running Rapier, so we want to be scaling those points into dex for the damage for that. But on top of that, 100 strength does a lot for the build. Not only does it spec or scale with the Greatsword really well, as you can see our base damage is really high on that, but all of the attribute breakpoints that we get help not only Greatsword but Rapier as well. We have light attack damage and heavy attack damage, which we use both on the Greatsword and the Rapier, and then that 10% physical damage as well, just adding to our damage overall. So a really beefy setup for a melee build. And then obviously you want to be running 150 con minimum on a light armor build. Now, taking a look at the weapons, we kind of already looked at the trees a little bit, but I'll kind of break them down. We are running a Grace setup with Flurry. So the normal Grace tree that I would run with Evade, Evade, Flesh, Swiftness, Red Curtains, and Controlled Breathing. And then we're obviously running Flurry. Now, we don't need To the Bone because we aren't really running Bleeds with the Rapier. And then Finalize as well. Like, the bleed, the one single bleed stack that you get, unless we're running like a full bleed build, isn't really needed or worth it. I really like this setup that I'm running right now with Refreshing Strikes, On Guard, and Light Edge, because we're really able to utilize all the passes and have a really high uptime on them. And Flurry is one of the things that does that. It's because a lot of these passes don't have cooldowns, such as Controlled Breathing, Refreshing Strikes, Swiftness. You can essentially get a full 5 stack of controlled breathing if they all the hits land, 5% cooldown on your refreshing strikes, and then your full 5 stacks of swiftness. So flurry is not only really good at damage, as we'll see, the iframe that it now has, but it's also really good at using the passives of the rapier. And then I just really like on guard and light edge for the extra damage. Now taking a look at greatsword, we are running a onslaught heavy tree. Most of the passives here, except for aggressive shift, onslaught stance is really dangerous this patch. That 15% increased damage you take is enough to get you 2 or 3 shot by pretty much anything in the game at the point we're at now. Everything has so much damage, and if you are not careful of when you are choosing to go into onslaught stance, you will pay for it dearly. And it's one of the reasons why I'm not running aggressive shift. But with some of the passives on Serenity, some of the passives on our gear, and the ultimate here, which gives us cooldowns, we have more than enough access to offensive stance, as we'll kind of see in the gameplay. But most of the passives here, heavy blade, swift onslaught, keen posture, critical comeback, which is huge, crush the weak, pretty much always have a debuff on somebody, step and strike, which is one of these sources of our empower that we can pretty much always get. Relentless Russian, the full are both the passives for that. And then taking a look at the Defiance side, again, we don't really need bleeds. And the damage from this ability is not really that noticeable. The passives are way more important. So Calamity Counter, we don't have the fortifies here, but because we have so many iframes and so much healing on the build, we kind of don't need them. But we do have the grit on heavy attacks. We really always want arrow deflection on any great sword build, and then faultless defender as well is really good. But yeah, roaring rupture, this is an ability that I've tried to use on pretty much every iteration of my blade master build that I've put together, and I've kind of just not really found a situation to use it. But this is a really good ability. Not only does it do a pretty decent amount of damage, but you gain 10% fortify per hit, so that's a potential of 30% fortify. You cleanse 2 debuffs. As I mentioned in quite a few videos, debuffs are just getting crazier and crazier as the game goes on, so any source of cleanse that you can get is going to be really good. The weaken goes really well with the fortifies, as you are going to see in some of the clips here. We'll be able to use roaring rupture and then just stand there and brawl out with somebody. It's one of the reasons why I really like this ability. Aside from all of the things that it gives you, the fortify and the weaken it makes the ability a really good choice when you're low on stam and you don't want to keep dodge rolling. You can literally just pop a roaring rupture, get the fortify, weaken the opponent, and then because of serenity, just sit there and still pump out tons of damage. And then the push and pull is also pretty nice. But yeah, taking a look at our gear, pretty simple. We are running a shirking heels tumbler build. So the gear is going to be rather straightforward. Shirking heels on as many pieces as we can get. Sturdy energy, as I keep mentioning, is a really good perk. I don't really, the perks on our gloves, like we don't really need obviously reverse stab, but I needed a higher gear score piece to hit the stat setup that I'm running. So, but we still got Shrinking Heals and Refreshing from it. Omnidirectional Evade and Shrinking Energy on the pants. And then those Tumbler Feet Wraps. So put Shrinking Heals on these because it's just a double stack of Shrinking. That Fortify is also really nice, but it also gives us our other source of Empower that we can stack. Now, we are running Ankh with the build, and the thing that I really like about Shirking Heals and Ankh this patch is it's obviously busted and needs to be nerfed, but in general, the fact that Shirking Heals is now a usable perk, it really makes Shirking Heals not only a anti-Zerg kind of setup, but it really helps for this build in particular. Melee builds, light melee builds especially, are one of the hardest builds to play in the game just because of how much you have to do to even get within range to do your damage. And then especially when you're in an outnumbered situation, there's just so much free and easy damage that people can apply with the ranged weapons. So that's really the reason why I like Onk and Shuriken Heals for this build. And I have to do some testing to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that this is also buffing the heals from my flurry, which is pretty insane, as we're going to see, because it doesn't have a cap on the heal. So if you hit multiple people, you will be getting the heal from all of that. And as we'll see, we get a ton of healing from flurry and Onk. But yeah, taking a look at the rest of the build, we are running Onk. I'm kind of in between which perks I'm going to put on here. I like the idea of running stam recovery, but I also kind of want to put shirking and power on there. And we have a lot of empowers, and we're at the cap, but the reason why I want to run as many powers as possible is because one, it's just easier to keep that crit chance buff up from the 350 dex, and there's also a whole bunch of sources of weaken in the game. So even if we can hit the cap, if we have like 5 stacks of weaken on us from a flail, all of those extra empowers are coming into effect, and we are benefiting from them. So I am considering putting Shuriken Heals on that when I get enough Dark Matter to upgrade it. Excuse me. But for the ring, I rolled a really nice ring, a Privateer's Heirloom. I believe it's from Barnacles, if I'm not mistaken, in the kiln. But we got Hardy, Slash Damage, and Refreshing. I really wanted to get Refreshing on the build because just lower cooldowns is really good. And then that heavy earring for the Refreshing, Nimble, and Healthy Toast. Taking a look at our weapons though, another source of empower here. We got a pretty nice Flurry Rapier, Vicious, Leashing Flurry, and then Keenly Empowered. So again, yet another source of empower. And then we are obviously running the Serenity. Yet another source of empower from our Serenity. And then I'm kind of, again, in between what perks I want to put. I've run Calamity Counter on my weapon in the past, and it's a perk that I really like running on the Greatsword. But now that I'm using Rupture, that 40-something% slow, I think it is, on the weapon is just absolutely insane. And I've been really liking Rupture, so I'm probably going to put Slowing Rupture and then try to get a piece of Calamity Counter on my gear. But yeah, and then we're running Stone Form for our Heart Rune. Pretty straightforward build, as I mentioned, but where it really starts to get complex is in the gameplay. So let's take a look at some of that. So before we jump into some of the juicier clips, I just wanted to give you an idea of how insane this amount of iframes are on a build, especially when you chain them together. We've got a arena here with a bunch of fire stats and a blunderbuss thrown in there. And we're going to go ahead and iframe that first pillar there, make our way all the way to the back with our flesh. Chain the iframe from our flurry into the roll dodge into the calamity counter to avoid a whole bunch more damage. Roll dodge that pillar again, but then we finally do get hit by a fireball there at the end. But literally just as long as you are able to time your ability usage correctly, again avoiding a bunch of damage right there with our flurry again, you can really make your way through fights and not really take any damage and play that assassin role. And again here we're gonna avoid the damage from that flourish and finish with our flurry, follow up with our great sword and trying to keep up the pressure. Having 2 mobility skills is really nice because we can stick on to people really well. Again, I framed the fireball there, I think, with our evade. You see how much health we get back from that flurry off of the wolf there, and that's just a single target. But we're just going to be able to keep up the pressure. We land that little poke there just to keep them slowed, and then break out of the grasping vines with that 300 dex passive. Just really allowing us to stick on the targets and be super annoying and play that assassin role. But we have another bow user here. We're just going to heal off of those arrows a little bit, bait out a couple of cooldowns. Once we get into that melee range, again, we're going to avoid all the damage from that perforate. Just imagine that we also roll dodge that sweep there, but I'm just going to keep up the pressure and stick onto them and able to get a pretty nice finish here. But you can really get an idea for when timed correctly, how evasive you can be in fights. But where the build really shines, in my opinion, is in larger scale fights. The iframes combined with the shirking healing, combined with the onk, buffing any more heals that we get from our healers during those big brawls. It really allows us to, like I said, play as a true assassin and just find our way through fights and pick off those lower health targets. But jumping into this clip here, we're going to kind of be working our way onto the middle point here, do a good job of taking out that first target, and with the help of some of our teammates on mid there, we're able to finish off both of them there. We kind of get pulled back by the Scorpion Sting, but this clip is going to get pretty crazy. So the enemy team has started to push up a little bit. We do get caught by the flail, and I'm trying to find a target which is more optimal to kind of jump on. It isn't going to be the flail healer. So we kind of get out of the grasp of the flail for a second at least, but they kind of continue to chase us. We have quite a few debuffs on us, so I'm just going to go ahead and cleanse those and then start to make my way onto the kind of outskirts of the fight to see if I can find a target. Pulling up here, I do see a target that is pretty low for one of my teammates, so we do try to jump on with the flesh and follow up with the rapier, but we do find the kill with that relentless rush, and then we're going to, again, just literally try to skirt our way through the fight and either hit the back line or try to find those low health targets. And I don't really want to spend too much time on a bruiser here, so I'm going to kind of attack him for a bit with a couple of our teammates. I see that we do manage to get quite a bit of damage into them, so I try to follow up, but they are getting healed as well, so I kind of switch my attention off of the bruiser and to the healer as to not kind of waste any more time. But we kind of make our way into the fight here. This is actually one of the clips from the intro, so I can kind of break down how it plays out here a bit. But we're kind of find one of our teammates under some pressure here, bait out a lot of abilities there with the flurry, find the finish there with the relentless rush, and then it does put us into offensive stance. But with us being caught in that grab wall, I decided to switch to defensive stance with the rupture, put in a ton of damage into this player with our teammate, finish him off with the flush, jump onto the next player as well, that we've kind of win this little skirmish onto the side, and able to stick on targets really well with, like I mentioned, having those two mobility skills and us being in light armor. Finish off that target really fast, and then with the serenity just get a chunky heavy attack there on that final target. But we're gonna take a look at another clip here. I have much better positioning this time to kind of try to put a dent into the enemy kind of Zerg, but they are getting pushed back into us. I do manage to pick off that one low health target and then pull a couple of players to me. One of them is kind of just chasing us blindly with no health, so we pick him off as well. And then we're going to go ahead and, like I mentioned, ignore the bruisers as much as we can. It's not that I don't think we can kill them, but it's just not our role in this fight. So we make our way through, put a ton of damage onto these players who are trying to retreat, finish off another one as they make it through the door. It looks like this last player here does manage to make it outside through the keep though, but just putting in a ton of pressure onto the retreating backline, finish off that player there as well. And it looks like there has been quite a few reinforcements here. So I just want to take a second to kind of reassess the situation, and I do notice one target get hit really hard by a random arrow. So I try to follow up the kill, but we get 4 or 5 players on our tail here. We do manage to iframe a lot of their damage, but as they do turn their attention to us, we get hit by quite a few things. Put ourselves into the corner here, get the heal, that fat heal off of the stricken heals and our flurry, pretty much get us back to full health, and we're able to disengage from that clump there. But it looks like our team is stuck on the point, so I kind of disengaged to see if there's any teammates that are in need of help, but it looks like I'm in need of more help than they are at the moment. So I pop my stone from here, get a nice heal off of that roll dodge, pop the rupture, also able to cleanse off any debuffs as we do get a lot of assistance from our teammates there. Through that fight, we're able to jump onto one of those targets that we see very low. Almost finish them off, but one of our bows does look like they do get the kill there. Jump onto the very next light armor target that I see. Do manage to avoid a bit of damage, excuse me, and because I see him in onslaught stance, we go for just a nasty heavy turn into the great sword and get a finish with the rupture. Continue my way through the fight to see if I can make it into the back here to cause any more disturbance. And it does look like I have maybe 1 or 2 players who are kind of doing the same thing, but we are in a pretty bad situation there for a second as we have everybody looking at us. But again, we're just going to pop that rupture to cleanse anything off of us, get that momentary fortify, and kind of just take a second to get a breather. But again, just go and jump right back into this fight here. We're going to relentless rush all the way through, pick up another kill on another target there. Flurry onto one of the healers. I see he's really tanky. As soon as I see how much damage we start to do, he probably had a bunch of fortifies on him, but I can immediately see whether or not it's going to be worth my time. But we make our way a little bit further back into the fight, pop that rupture just to make sure we don't take too much damage from behind. And I jump back in as I see one of my teammates here very, very low, get a ton of damage off with the relentless rush there. And I'm trying to follow up on the kill, but that one player does manage to make it away. Use our flurry there to avoid that CC from the flail. And then we're just going to go ahead and keep trucking through and finding kills with our team here. I do turn around though, and I find one of my teammates under a lot of pressure, so I try to get at least one of them off if I can. We find the slow on this one hatchet player here, and I'm trying to put some damage in with the greatsword, but he's clearly able to avoid the slower attacks. So we just switch to the rapier, put in a ton of damage, try to follow up with the flurry there to find the kill, but we just finish him off with the rapier and the greatsword to find the kill there. I almost hit that healer with a disgusting heavy there, but we do find the kill there. Again, you can see what I meant by being out of stamina and having rupture. Gives me enough tankiness to survive that hit, and we just, because of Serenity, just straight up bop that one player who was trying to attack us there. But a really, really nice push here all the way from Sun, pretty much just pushing the enemy team back to their back base and really, really being able to play that role as an assassin. A little bit later in this match, we do end up, or we find ourselves into a Baron fight, and this build is just so much fun to fight in. We jump onto the point here, and I notice that it's only our team onto the point, so we kind of immediately just turn around and see if we can brawl anybody who jumps onto the point. We do manage to get caught by the hammer sun, even though we're out of it there, but we flurry, don't manage to avoid the screen, but we break out of it pretty quickly, get some nice assistance there from the pillar, follow up with the heavy attack from the greatsword, almost finish that player off. We're going to go ahead and cleanse and switch to the defensive stance just to make sure we don't get bursted. Again, used the flurry to avoid a lot of damage, finish off that one player. We're going to go ahead and find our flesh, finish off the second one is there, our second one, excuse me, and just pretty much stand our ground at the entrance there and fight off everybody who was trying to come in. Try to follow up on the tank here who was pretty low, and we're able to find the kill with the evade, but yeah, this build is just so much fun to fight in. And it's kind of weird to say because a lot of builds incorporate kiting and movement and running, which they really need to into their playstyle, but you can really just stay in fights and put the hurting onto people as long as you are able to play the build correctly and time your iframes really, really well. And then I think one of the best examples to kind of show the build off is going to be an influence race. Just absolute madness with the amount of people that can end up in a single area here. But we're going to do the same thing, just weave our way through fights and find those targets. So we use that flesh, make our way over to the back line of the greens here, find a disgusting heavy, finish off one of those healers there. We're going to go ahead and use the flurry and then our dodge roll and our greatsword to avoid a lot of the damage from these remaining players. Get the heal from our shuriken, get some assistance from our teammate, finish off that second player as well. I'm going to go ahead and jump on to this secondary healer as well. Find a pretty nice combo with the flurry and the greatsword, and we're going to be able to get a pretty nice kill. Follow up though, still a bunch of targets in the area. Flush through like I like to do on this build and just make my way through the back targets, or to the back line, excuse me. Find a ton of damage onto this light armor target. Almost straight up two-shot them with the greatsword and our rapier combo there. But our teammates are again going to be able to find the kill for us there. Find or end up with a tank. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of try to get away unless we can get some assistance. But we don't really do. I find him out of stamina though, so I kind of want to see how much damage we can put in with the Serenity. But with the lag, with how many people are out here, we aren't really able to connect with those attacks even though he is out of stamina. But we do find some flurries into the back. Actually finding in some pretty decent damage. I'm trying to follow up on the kill here, but get jumped on by quite a few targets. Put a nice little backwards evade to kind of throw them off, and then we're going to go ahead and use the shuriken heals to get us back to being healthy, and then kind of disengage from this fight. But we do get one player here to follow us over. It is a tankier great sword and shield player, and they do have serenity as well, so I do want to be careful as to not get hit in my offensive stance. But he takes a ton of damage from the finisher from that friendly yellow player there, and we're able to help finish him off. And then we're gonna go ahead and glide back through the fight. But yeah, this is easily one of my favorite builds that I've put together this season. Just the fact that you're able to really get into the middle of those giant brawls and play to your role, which is a assassin, is just so much fun to me. But if you have any questions at all, please let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you all so much for watching, and have an amazing day.